Howdy folks, Joe Howard here. All right, a little housekeeping before today's episode. WPMRR Virtual Summit coming up in September. If you want to attend an event that is 100% focused on helping you grow your monthly recurring revenue, your subscription business, feel free to sign up and let's do it. It is happening in September, 3-day event. Go over to community.wpmrr.com to get signed up and registered for the summit. Kind of leads me into my second point, WPMRR community. Again, at community.wpmrr.com. If you want to take this podcast experience and really get more involved, you're not just listening to me on the podcast, you're actually getting involved with other folks all trying to grow their subscription businesses together. Join the community. We've got 78 members as of when I'm recording this. So small but mighty for now. Starting small, but accelerating pretty quickly. I'm hoping to have more members in here doing their thing. So feel free to join today. If you're early in, you get a cool badge on your profile, a first 100 active members badge. So don't wait too long or they might run out. There's some scarcity there. Cool. Last but not least, let's get into the intro for the episode today. I was lucky enough to have Dan Maby on the podcast today. So Dan is an agency owner, but more people know him for the nonprofit organization he runs in the WordPress space and now helping remote workers across the globe with mental health and mental well-being. That organization is called A Big Orange Heart. Most people have heard about it. And so I got to talk with him a lot about what it was like to start that organization and what it's been like to run that organization, helping people around the globe be more mental health aware when it comes to their remote work. We also got to dive into WordFest, which is a now virtual summit, but has some in-person events as well, or at least it did before pandemic came upon us, and may in the future as well. We talked a little bit about in-person and digital events. I got to pick his brain a lot about digital events that they are throwing here soon. It's a 24-hour event, and I just want to give folks the date because I don't think we actually got to mention it directly on the podcast. Dates of WordFest coming up very soon. It is a 24-hour event on the 23rd of July. And that starts at midnight UTC. It's really cool. You can go on the homepage, just enter. It automatically picks up your time zone. You can see when all the events are in your time zone. Super easy. So you can just go to wordfest.live for that. Cool. That is it for the intro today. Let's get to it. Please give a warm welcome to Dan Maby. Enjoy today's episode. All right, we are live on the pod this week with Dan Maby. Am I saying your last name right? Is it Maby or Maby?
No, Maby's the one. Maybe it is.
Cool. Maybe it is. Nailed it. All right. Sweet. Dan, welcome to the podcast. I want for you to tell folks what you do with WordPress. But before you do that, I want you to tell a story we talked about offline right before we started recording about your WordPress, or excuse me, your WordCamp travel story. That was hilarious.
Yeah, sure. Joe, thanks. Really appreciate this. Really appreciate the opportunity to come and have a chat with you. It was flying into the last WordCamp US in 2019. All bit of a blur from now, but as I flew in, got a connecting flight and chatting to the chap next to me, sitting on the flight over. It hadn't connected, hadn't even actually spoken on names to one another. Got into WordCamp US into the sponsors hall and ran into the same chap. Turns out to be your very own Nick. And
so good. I never heard that story before. You told it to me right before we started recording. So that's I love that. WordPress is, man, small world, right? It's a big world out there, and somehow as open source people, I guess, tend to find each other. So
That's right.
Did you see each other across the event and you were like, hey, are you that guy? Are you
exactly
that guy? Hey, what's up?
Yeah, no, it was very cool. And getting in there, and as you're just saying, it's a huge community, yet it's such a tight knit, small community. And the idea of flying in from London and ending up in the seat next to Nick and chatting away about WordPress and what we're doing, and then ending up in that same conference together.
Very cool. It's one of those, it feels like one of those almost fated things to happen at a WordCamp, because WordCamps just give such good positive energies. It's just it starts when you leave your front door, I think,
Absolutely. I mean, that for me, I mean, that's the big one in terms of the WordCamps is the hallway track. Get in, have those conversations. You just never know where those conversations are going to go. You never know where you're going to end up. And there's been some pretty special places that I've ended up off the back of those conversations. As much as I love WordCamps and meetups and events within our space, around the content within them, I think there's just something very special in that hallway track.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more, and I definitely want to dive into all that today. I do want to start by just giving you a chance to introduce yourself and some of the things you do with WordPress. Folks who are watching on YouTube, they see us kind of repping with our hats here on video, so they can probably guess at this point, and I'm sure a lot of people they don't have to guess because they already know who Dan is, but folks don't know some of the things you do around community stuff with WordPress, around event stuff with WordPress. Anything else I'm missing? Tell us a little bit about that.
Sure. I mean, I've been in and around WordPress. I'm starting to lose count of the number of years now. I was taking a look back actually at the 18th when it was the 18th birthday for WordPress, and realised that I'd started on version 1.5. So I think we're going back about 14 odd years. But no, as I say, I'm Dan Maby. I am the founder of Big Orange Heart, a registered non-profit supporting and promoting positive wellbeing and mental health within remote working communities. I also run a digital agency out of London in the UK called Blue 37. I run a number of meetups, a number of events across the WordPress space. I'm a big fan of the community side of WordPress.
Yeah, very cool. My first question is, man, you do a lot of stuff because I see you so active in Big Orange Heart. I see you active in the Slack community. I see you active in everywhere online. How do you find time to do agency work and all your positive community work?
It's been an interesting journey. I'll be honest. So Big Orange Heart was actually born out of my needs as an agency owner and some of the challenges that I was facing in terms of the kind of lone working and trying that solopreneur experience that I was going through, and trying to figure out how do I fit into this space. I needed people to connect with. I needed to just have conversations with other like-minded people and people that were in the space and having an understanding of the experiences that I was going through, and that was really, it was kind of off the back of the agency that the Big Orange Heart was born. And certainly keeping the two afloat has been a really interesting challenge for me. And there's been moments through this journey where the agencies had to take a bit of a back seat, and equally there have been times where the charities had to drop down a little bit, but in terms of my priority. But overall, I think we've managed to get a good mix of the two.
Yeah, cool. I mean, I really like that answer. I feel like sometimes people feel the pressure to say, like, I work on both of them and concurrently, and I'm always, pushing forward on them both. I had Pippin on the podcast recently too, and he was pretty honest about, sometimes I'm focused on brewery stuff, sometimes I'm focused on software stuff, and it ebbs and flows. And you had a similar answer there. I think that's a healthy answer. I guess Big Orange Heart has helped you a little bit with some of that mental health, because to me that's a honest and transparent answer that things take different priorities at different times in your life, and that's cool.
Absolutely. And to be honest, they've got to. If you try and continually run at 100 miles an hour, 100% all the time, you're going to run into issues. You're going to run into that burnout issue that I've gotten to that point. I did get to a point of burnout. I was trying to focus on accomplishing too many things without the support network that really I needed around me. And that's really where looking at things like the recurring revenue within the business enables you to then enable me to then bring in additional staff and additional team members, work with additional freelancers to relieve that, so I can then focus my energies on the areas that were important to me.
Yeah, I think you're going about things the right way, seemingly as someone who has encountered some of these challenges and learned themselves. I can't go 100 miles an hour all the time. I have to slow and steady, as the old adage goes. Wins the race. Sometimes the hare beats the rabbit, maybe over the short term, but over the long term, tortoise can come out ahead.
Yeah, absolutely.
I would like to. I wanted to hear and just learn a little bit about the name of the organization, big orange heart, and the logo and stuff. One thing I really love about being in your Slack channel or in the Slack community, which is around a big orange heart, which I stole from WP Buff Slack group, is you have the orange heart custom emoji. And I've seen some people with custom emojis out there, but that one was one that was really like, this is like all, like you can like react to what someone said, like with this orange heart. Like that's such an on brand thing. So we have our logo, both our colors. We actually like added our like mission and our mission custom emojis and like value custom emojis. Like, so you've motivated a lot for me in terms of like, oh, what custom emojis can do, but love the big orange heart. Where did that all start in terms of like name, branding, that kind of stuff?
Awesome. Well, thank you. I really appreciate hearing that. And actually, I've heard a number of companies that have adopted the orange heart emoji within their own Slack
awesome.
to support. You know, if staff are wanting to represent, talk about well-being, or there's a mental health discussion going on, then the orange heart is making appearances in other Slacks. But yeah, the name was really we started out as WP and Up, and very focused within specifically the WordPress community. Through that period, we were using orange as our branding, and actually the community adopted the orange heart emoji. We would find that just people were simply using that orange heart emoji a lot through our conversations in Slack. And we had always had an intention to evolve into something slightly larger and something slightly bigger than what WP and Up was initially. And at the start of right on the beginning of when the pandemic started, we actually took the decision to rebrand into Big Orange Heart, which was the new brand, the new name for the organization that would break us out of solely the WordPress community and into the wider remote working community. And we didn't have a name. There was never a name set up for that transition from what was WP and Up into the next into the new organizational identity. And it just struck me. I was getting a train from my home going into London. And I just saw this poster, and on the poster there was this orange heart, and it just absolutely struck me that the community had adopted the name, and that's really where Big Orange Heart. It was this big orange heart sitting on this poster, and seeing it across the community, the way the community was using the emoji. It made absolute sense. It's a big orange heart, and it fitted with the ethos. It fitted with the messaging about, this is about us, moving forward, pressing forward, in love, and making sure that, this is a really difficult, or can be a really difficult subject matter to touch on. When we're getting into mental health, when we're getting into well-being, it can be really, really challenging as a topic. So we wanted something that had that kind of softer edge to it, hence where the heart come from.
I love that it's so community driven. I mean, it's people sit in rooms for 100 hours and try to figure out what their brand's going to be, or what their logo is going to be, or what their company name is going to be. But you kind of went in a different direction. And I think that it adds that much more credence and that much more like organic goodness of the brand, because it's like, it's not, Dan that said, this is what our brand is, because this is what I think, people do. People use that, 10 times a day in the Slack channel. It's almost like knocking on the door, knocking on your brain lobe, being like, hey, Dan, like this is what we're all about. And why not take that feedback and run with it? It seems like it's been successful. And to move outside of a WP name, or to move to a name that doesn't have WP in your name, is also interesting, because like having WP in your name has advantages in some situations. Like for WP buffs, people are like, they do WordPress maintenance. Like we don't do website management in any other spaces. So like WP makes sense. Absolutely. And for you said WordPress is a great space, but we want to help everybody who's having mental health challenges, all the remote workers, not just WordPress. And if a Joomla person comes along, or someone who works in any other open source software, they see WP, they're gonna be like, oh, maybe that's not for me.
Absolutely.
But Big Orange Heart's a little bit more welcoming, and it has a heart in it, so of course it's welcoming. So I think it all made sense. Absolutely,
and that was really the key. It was about, how do we create something that has that appeal to to anybody that's within the space. Huge fans of open source, open source generally, and we wanted to make sure that we were opening ourselves up for as wide a community and as wide support network as we possibly could, and that's really where we wanted to take this. And it's been, again, a fantastic journey just over the last 18 months, 2 years, particularly through the pandemic and through the really hard challenges that have been presented through that period. We right at the start, just as we were going through that rebranding or started that rebranded process, we saw more than a 300% increase in demand on the service. So here we are trying to juggle this, if anybody's kind of gone through that rebranding process before, it can be quite a challenge sometimes, trying to make sure you're getting it right. There's a lot of pieces to the jigsaw to make sure that they're in the right place at the right time. But to do that at the same time as we obviously had to deal with that huge increase in terms of demand onto the charity, it was interesting, and we certainly learned a lot through it.
Yeah. WPBFs went through a rebrand last year, and boy, you are right. It is complex. It doesn't seem so complex when you're at the beginning. You're like, it's like 10 steps or 20 steps. I have them all written out. It's like, well, we'll just do the things. And then that turns into like 100 steps because step 5 turns into like 10 sub-steps, So and we weren't even changing our name. We just we just did new branding and a new website. So I'm sure I at least at a base level, I understand the complexity of it. I did want to touch on the like services of a Big Orange Heart too. So I'm not sure how you would think about it, but I think there are probably some people who are maybe wanting to be proactive about their mental health. They know maybe they're feeling some burnout. They just want to have a good community of people to talk to surround themselves with. Right? You become the people you surround yourselves with. So other people who are concerned about mental health and want to get ahead of it, you do too. It's going to help you to be part of a community like that. But there are definitely going to be people out there who need professional help around mental health. So I actually don't exactly know how a Big Orange Heart works. Do people come to a Big Orange Heart for like professional services? Is that something you can like connect them with people? Are there actually people who like work for or maybe like contract with Big Orange Heart to like provide it within the organization? I'd love to learn a little bit more about like the services and what kind of things you can offer to people who maybe are listening to this and they're like, maybe they're feeling burnout, or maybe they're at the beginning. They're like, I feel weird. Like, why do I feel not motivated to do stuff? You're maybe start to feel burnout. What can people come to Big Orange Heart for?
Absolutely. That's a great question. We actually have kind of varying levels of support that we deliver. And it starts out with that kind of very light touch conversation. So that what you were just mentioning there around, I feel a bit weird, or, something's not right, or I'd normally be doing this and I'm normally really productive across it, but I'm not, certainly through the pandemic, I know I've experienced an awful lot of very weird emotions and very weird feelings that I've needed to just talk with other people about. And so that's where we start out. We've got our light touch services that are available through our website. So on bigorangeheart.org, you can hit /support. On there's a chat bot that actually runs through people, so runs through various scenarios. So if you're dealing with high levels of anxiety, or if you're dealing with a panic attack, there are various steps that you can run through with those chatbots. Now, we were hesitant about the use of chatbots initially. We actually made sure that we ran both concurrently with live chat and the chatbots. We actually found that the chatbots were received really well, and the feedback we were getting from those that were prepared to provide feedback was that there was that level of anonymity with the chatbot that they felt more comfortable with, that people felt more comfortable with, so they could talk through, and the bot would return some responses in relation to what was being delivered by the person visiting. Having said that, we also on the site we do still and always will have the live chat available on there as well. So. We have volunteers and individuals that sit on the live chat. Now, these are not mental health professionals, and we make it very clear that these are not mental health professionals at this point. But those are individuals that have experience within the remote working environments, that have had experience of, that they're prepared to share and discuss and talk through with individuals. Those volunteers are then supported by, we have a network of mental health professionals that we can tap into. So should an individual need to progress their support, then we have roadmaps that enable us to signpost individuals to the most appropriate support that we have available to us. The core element, if you like, of what we do in our community actually sits within our Slack community. And within our Slack community, we have what we call life groups. So our life groups are very small groups of individuals. So we limit it to around 6 people within each life group. And the intention of these life groups is that individuals build up a confidence with that small group of individuals within that group. We try and pair up individuals with different experiences so that they can connect with one another and really just support one another. So it becomes a peer-to-peer support network for those community members that have decided to join. And we've had some phenomenal success with this, where people are able to build up that trust and communicate and have a safe space to be able to turn to. And that safe space covers a wide variety of topics. So we hear of conversations where people go in and talk about challenges in relation to their business in that moment. They may have a client that isn't settling their invoice, so they just want some advice on how, what have other people done in this experience, how to work through that. Right through to the slightly more challenging, the topics around maybe struggling with poor mental health, and of course that group is really intended to be the ability that support network for those individuals. So it's been a really phenomenal experience going through this and seeing these grow.
Wow, really cool. And I think I want to dive more into this, because I think clearly it's helpful to have a really trusting space, a place you can go to where you'll have support, that is going to encourage you, that is going to have your back in the situations when it comes to difficult things to talk about, like mental health. WPMRR just launched a community around helping folks grow subscription businesses. Clearly, mental health is going to take priority in this case. But I think that some of the things that make your groups, small groups, so successful could help me make our groups more successful, because I want to be successful too. I want our small community groups and spaces to be successful in what they do. So I want to pick your brain a little bit into maybe what made some of these small groups successful, maybe we can even back up a little bit to how do you even form these groups? Because I'm at the point right now in the community where it's kind of amorphous, people are coming in and introing each other, and we have these cool spaces for marketing and sales and content, or operations and systems, all the things I think people want to talk about in terms of growing subscription businesses. But I'm now at this place where I'm okay, how do I group people together to create their own energies so that I'm not having to run every group, right?
Sure. Yep.
So what are those first steps of getting core groups together of individuals, and how did that start?
Sure. So initially, this was a very organic process for us. So it was something that started very early on in the process for us, where we wanted to figure out how can we create a network to support one another, because we're talking about a global community that we're trying to deliver support into, and with the best will and intentions in the world and as much funding as we possibly can, we're never going to be able to support every single person. So we needed to find a way that we could scale up the ability for people to receive some level of support. And that's really where this concept of these life groups came. And the life groups were some of the...
call them life groups?
Yes. Yeah. And they were really born out of the need of the individuals that we had at a very small scale. And it's really grown from that point. We're very intentional about making sure that we've got different skill sets within those groups. So that's something that we needed. We were very mindful of this issue, because if let's say you've got 6 people that are all talking about the same thing, they all are, let's say they're all designers. They're all going to have potentially very similar experience or similar experiences in their working environment. What we want to try and encourage is that diversity within those conversations. We want to make sure that different people with different experiences are able to chime in and have that conversation and share. I'm coming from a perspective of a marketer, and I'm talking to somebody who maybe a virtual assistant that has no experience of marketing at all. And those two individuals can come at the same problem with very different perspectives. So it really is all about creating that just a very diverse conversation for them within those groups.
I love that. I call that 1 + 1 = 3. And to me, diversity creates that ecosystem in which you can get 1 + 1 = 3. If you have 2 people who are exactly the same, you're going to get 1 + 1 = 2 every time. Oh, you said that?
Absolutely.
Yep, I agree with that. You have 2 different people. Someone says something, someone else says, I actually think a little bit differently than that. Of course, as long as both those people are respectfully coming together in a trusting conversation, you can say, hey, I actually think something a little different. Like, and this was my experience. So I actually experienced totally differently. The first person's like, oh my God, like that's actually, sometimes that can be really life altering. It can be like altering to your whole opinion about something. It happens to me all the time when I'm talking to people from different places in the world, from different backgrounds than me. It's like, oh, like I almost didn't even know like people think that, like, oh, wow, that's really eye-opening to me. And that creates this like environment where people, in your case, in these life groups, can overcome really big challenges and help each other out because they almost have their eyes opened in a sense. Not that I'm trying to say it in a way that's like, people, of course, everyone has their own set of experiences, but you can gain more experiences by talking to a more diverse set of people. And I think that diversity piece sounds like it was pretty key to making these groups successful.
Very much so. And again, the conversation around diversity has been at the core of everything that we do across Big Orange Heart, and it really has been, from the very beginning, from the foundations of this. We wanted to make sure that because we're dealing with a global community, there are so many issues in relation to well-being and mental health. From a cultural perspective, mental health and well-being are dealt with and handled in incredibly different ways and are viewed upon in very different ways. So we didn't want to come at this from here's a UK centric or here's a US centric perspective on this. So we've tried to through everything that we've done, we've tried to incorporate the views and the opinions of individuals from across our global community, and we're very open to welcoming more individuals into our leadership across the organisation, as well as encouraging the community itself to have a part of within that leadership of the organisation. And that's where, again, we use a lot of the communication within the Slack to encourage the community to help with decision-making processes and to be part of that.
Yeah, love it, man. Okay, so bigorangeheart.org. If people are feeling like they're challenged right now, bigorangeheart.org/support. You can talk to a bot there that can help you if you want to feel a little anonymous, but they have live chat there as well. So whatever you need, it sounds like they have the support there to help you. I want to shift focus a little bit, actually based on something that you've said a couple of times here, Dan, which is this focus on this global community and serving everyone around the world with their mental health in terms of remote workers. So I want to shift our focus a little bit into WordFest. This is something you booked this yesterday, so I've had like about 24 hours to like think about what kind of questions I want to ask Dan about. And the big thing about WordFest, I've got a ton of things I want to ask you, but one of the things is definitely you go on to the WordFest website, just wordfest.live. By the way, people should go and register right now. Just takes a couple seconds, super easy. 24 hours, 7 continents, 3,000 attendees. The 24 hours piece is what I want to touch on because, man, throwing a 24-hour festival of WordPress, I mean, that itself is a enormous feat. We're throwing this WPMRR virtual summit later this year, and it's 3 days, and it's like, I actually forget the exact times. We haven't totally decided, but it's like 10 to like 2:30 or something, middle of the day, Eastern time, which in itself has been like a lot. You're throwing a 24-hour WordFest. That's crazy, man. So tell me a little bit about like the gears that are turning in the back end to make something like that happen.
Yeah, absolutely. Again, this is where we had a lot of conversations around the concept of WordFest, and this event was born out of we've been delivering events for a very long time, and again, it's
I can tell
about
looking on the website. You look like you go on our website. It's like it's their second year. Like it's okay, it's fine. It's better than last year, but still, it's okay. You guys, I come to your website. I'm like they are event folks right here.
This idea of delivering these events has been, it's about reducing social isolation. So it's about bringing people together. That's really where the kind of the core element of events fit within Big Orange Heart. And of course, the pandemic had a huge impact in terms of our delivery of events. How do we continue to do that? So we set out to continue to do our monthly events. So we actually stopped delivering our in-person events in the February of 2020. So a little over a month before the UK government said that we could no longer be in person together. So we stopped in the February. The March, we decided to deliver our first event, our first virtual event, and we jumped on Zoom, as so many organisers did, and within about 30 seconds realised that Zoom was entirely the wrong solution for us to be able to deliver any kind of a virtual event. It's great as a business communication tool. It's just not set up.
Especially now, people
event.
are like zoomed out. They're like
Absolutely.
going to Zoom for a fun conference. Like Zoom's not fun anymore. Zoom's like where I go to have like my business calls, but it's like no longer a fun space, you know?
Absolutely. So we set out to build a custom solution. And again, being big proponents of open source, we looked into the open source space, what was there, and we've actually got a solution that we've built. We've been delivering events on now for I think we're about 14, 15 months, maybe a bit longer than that, actually.
And you built it. It's in-house built.
Yeah, absolutely. Totally.
Another crazy thing. That's awesome. I mean, I think someone told me this before, because I think I was at WordFest last year and I was like, this platform's awesome. Like, what platform are they using? I was trying to like ask around, and someone told, I can't remember who it was, but someone was like, they made it. And now I'm remembering because you just told me about it, and that's awesome. I mean, it's an amazing It's like event. It's like clearly like the perfect like digital event platform. I remember that. So nice. That's really cool.
It's been awesome actually to go through this, and it's been a case of we as organisers know what we want, we know what we enjoy, and what we need to deliver. And we, as I say, we really wanted to focus on open source. We've actually the platform. We built a custom app that we were then able to embed within WordPress site. So we've actually now we've just finished the work to convert that into a WordPress plugin. So in fact, the entire system now is running within a WordPress instance. We've got all the full functionality within it, and we're excited to be able to release the WordPress plugin fairly soon. We had hoped to have it ready before
So
WordFest.
that's becoming a product.
What we're looking to do is deliver this into the community to enable more communities to come together.
Sure. So it's a product, but maybe not a paid product. But it's being packaged so other people can use it.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yes. Okay. I'm going to be looking at it, man.
Looking forward to getting that one out. But that journey's been incredible. So we in the first 12 months, we had around 13,000 attendees come through that platform. And it just meant that we could continue to iterate, we can continually develop. If anybody, and there's been several people that have attended lots of our events regularly over the past year, and it became a bit of a running joke every time they come into the next event. What else has changed? Something's been adjusted because we were constantly adapting to the needs of the community. So circling back to your original question about the 24-hour format, we sat there and said, look, we've got this platform, we're doing these monthly events. We actually opened the platform up to other communities. So the other communities that were struggling to come together during the pandemic, we said, look, we've got a platform. Provided your meetup or your organization or your event fits with the ethos of the charity, we will donate the platform to you. So we've actually run a number of other regular events through that platform. So we sat down at a meeting and said, look, we've got this platform. It's we're getting some phenomenal feedback from it, from the community. We had always wanted to deliver a larger scale in-person event through the organization. Simply can't do that right now, obviously because of the pandemic. So we said, look, let's do something virtual. We can do a larger scale virtual event. And of course, the conversations then led on to, right, how do we make sure that this is inclusive? How do we ensure that across, we can include all of the time zones across the event? Do we do it across multiple days? I mean, that was the first point. Do we do a 3, 4, 5 day event? So we can make sure that there's a time slot that every individual across every different time zone can participate in some way. And we ended up, all that kept running through my mind was the very first couple of word sessions that were delivered way back, which again were both 24-hour format events. And the very first one, I actually attended the full 24 hours of the event. And it's always stuck with me, that memory of that event. And I figured, look, if we do it across one 24-hour period, we're offering an opportunity across every single time zone for every community member to get involved at some point. So this issue of, we run into problems of, do you attend these events in your work day? Is this a work thing? Or do you attend this in your personal time? Offering over a 24-hour period means that we're taking away those questions in relation to when somebody attends.
I like that piece, because that is, Brian is working on WPMRR Virtual Summit with me. So we're totally working on this together. So I've had that exact conversation. We were talking about like WordFest is doing 24 hours. Like, is that even an option? I didn't even know that was a thing. Brian was like, yeah, we've done that before. It's a little crazy. We've decided not to go that direction. But in the future, I actually remember saying in the meeting, like, once we have a little more like support or like volunteers, because I know you have some volunteers helping with your summit. So it's just me and Brian right now. So we thought 24 hours would be tough to pull off, but I like that idea a lot. And I do like that people have the option of like, do I attend during work or do I attend outside of work? I think what we kind of thought was like, most people, like, they can get away with working like half a day, and our event is only like 4 hours in a day. So they can like do their work first thing in the morning, and then maybe they'll show up and watch a couple things or whatever. And maybe that's not everybody, but that was kind of like, that's how I would attend probably. So I think that we made somewhat of an assumption there, but it would be great to not have to make a choice between like, are we in work days or outside of work days? Like, right, whenever you want to, it's like not an asynchronous event, but it like adds some level of asynchronicity in which you can like show up anytime during that 24-hour period and get something out of it. So I dig
absolutely. It. And that again, there were several elements to this. It was about, again, talking about our wanting to ensure that our event was as diverse as it possibly could be. And this idea of doing a 24 hours and following the continent. So we start off in Australia, we go on to Asia, Africa, Europe, South America, North America. For those eagle-eyed or listening, we've actually got 7 continents. We can only deliver 6. So our chill out tent, our community tent, is Antarctica for the day. So you can go and chill out in our community tent. But the idea of those 6 continents meant that we've been actively trying to encourage speakers from those continents. So we want individuals that represent those spaces, those locations, to be part of the event. And we are actively looking for MCs, volunteers, people that represent those locales as we move around that global community. This is a global celebration of WordPress.
Yeah, I like that a lot, because it's not just you saying like you want to like help people around the world. It's like every like facet of the summit points towards that. It's like, we want to help everyone. Okay, that means we're going to do this 24-hour period, so event, so everyone can come, which means we're going to try and have speakers from those places, which adds to the diversity of the speaker list, which again points towards helping people from every single area, because you have like someone from South America helping South America. You have someone from like Europe helping Europe. You have someone from Thailand helping people from Thailand, Southeast Asia. So it's like really like personalized to everyone. So I think that's like I think that's a cool idea, because our event it's about helping people grow subscription businesses. It's easy to not have as diverse of a like speaker panel, because we're not coming from a place of we need people from all these continents. Let's reach, like, that's okay. Now we have a baseline of like, where we need speakers from. Just like whatever, quote unquote, the like experts around like subscription revenue, they could be from a small subset. And in fact, I feel pretty confident saying that may be true, depending on your definition of what the experts are. Who knows? But I think I like that your whole event, it almost like forces you just to have like the most diverse, the most helpful to as many people kind of event as possible. Obviously, like, this is only our second year doing our summit, so we're still learning. That's why I'm having you on the podcast, because I want to learn from you. I want to hear all the stuff you're doing. So these are things I'm definitely going to be thinking about, that I'm already thinking about, but we'll continue to iterate as the years go on, so that we can keep throwing events that are as helpful as possible for the greatest amount of people. I think it's easier said than done, but you're like doing it, so it's really cool to hear about that.
It is. I think for us, it comes down to an element of it is the speaker selection process. So, and also the team behind it. So we've got a core team of 16 individuals that make up the core organizing team at this time around.
Wow.
I believe of those 16, we've got, I think it's something like 7 time zones across those individuals. So yeah, there's a diverse organizing team in the background. Our speaker selection process. So we put an open call for speakers out. The initial selection process is a blind selection process. So we remove all identifiable information from the speakers' submissions, and then run that through. So every single team member is invited to then obviously go through and say, between 1 and 5, this is a 5. I would absolutely be in the room if that session was running. This is a 1. It's not for me. And that gives us obviously a basis to start building off. But of course, when it comes to diversity, there's so much more in relation to that process. And I'm a true believer there is no magic bullet at this stage at the moment. There's no really perfect way of finding a truly diverse mix of speakers. We can work as hard as we can, but there's always going to be more that we can do in terms of making sure that it is a more diverse event.
Yeah, I think the fact that you do open speaker submissions and do that blind first round is a great way to diversify your list of speakers. You probably have to do some recruitment on the front end to entice more applications from diverse folks, but that entire process sounds great. We still at WPMRR Summit are doing outreach to folks for speakers because it's Brian and I, because it's 2 people. So I think that it's an interesting concept of, like, I go on your website, I see like your list of volunteers who are helping out. I think to do all of the things that you're doing, I think it just takes a pretty good amount of bandwidth and resources, and like people just like dedicating that to make something like this happen. If like Brian and I were to try and do this all ourselves, like I'd be on Big Orange Heart, like live chat right now talking about it because I'd be overwhelmed, right? So
that's right.
I think that as WPMRR Summit grows, I like this idea of doing speaker selection. Like I'd rather, open speaker submission. I love that idea, but it's just like, man, do I have time to like do all, like there's so much to do for the summit. So I think the future looks something like what you're doing, and which is like having volunteers, or maybe even if we can like do well enough with like sponsorships to do like even some paid positions for people. I don't know exactly what it looks like, but I think at the end of the day, it's like more people doing more stuff to like help in certain areas of the summit to like make it a reality, in order to make it not only like more attendees or more speakers or more sponsors, like how can we help more people? Well, we can help more people by like making all the things we're doing even better for everybody. So absolutely. I like this idea of like, when I see all your volunteers, I'm like, oh, so like that, I mean, it's harder in a sense because you have to like manage all those people, but it's easier in a sense because you don't have to, like I'm online doing all the stuff right now. Like not having to do all that would also be probably, there's some things would be less challenging for sure, or not even less challenging, but I'd be able to do more and do things better, So I like that idea.
There is. So the first event, so we were only 6 months ago, 6 months ago we delivered the first event, the first WordFest.
It was only 6 months ago, really?
Only 6 months ago, yeah. We actually initially set out that we were going to deliver this as an annual event, but based off the feedback that we received from the first event, we stupidly put the option to do annually, biannually, or monthly, and we actually had 23% of those that submitted asked for it monthly.
I'll show up every time, man. Yeah,
that's right. But we decided actually, there was such a buzz, and it really did. On so many levels, it felt like a really successful event for many different reasons. So we decided we'll do it again this time around. Do it 6 months, so twice a year. And the initial team that volunteered to support this, and just to be clear, every individual across this event is a volunteer. The initial team, there's a core team of about 6 or 7 of us. that have progressed, that continued on to deliver this second event. The second event, we actually set out and said, look, we're going to, we want to try and simplify things a bit. We want to be more focused on the content. We had a fantastic response in relation to the content last time, but we just wanted to level it up, take it up another level this time around. Learn from the experiences of what we've gone through. And part of the mantra that we kept saying at the, as we were talking about doing the next event was simplify things. We've got to simplify. Everything's got to be simplified. Well, the first event, we delivered 48 sessions. Initially, it started out as 24, that grew to 36, and eventually to 48, just because we'd had such a high quality in terms of speaker application. This time around, we're actually delivering 66 sessions. So we've gone from 48 to 66, and yet we're going to simplify. But there's so much good stuff coming through that, so many things that we're wanting to deliver. And the volunteers, I need to give a big shout out to all of the volunteers, everybody that's giving into this event. There's a particular core of people that are, you'll find on the website on wordfest.live, the likes of Michelle Frechette, Paul Smart, Kate DeRosa, how they're just a really special group of people there that have formed an incredible bond across this. I'm going to be honest. I shared some of our experiences in terms of organisers, how the conversations that we were having, and how we deliver a 24-hour event as a team, and the use of Discord in the background was a key tool for us, and it just created this really kind of magical moment as we were delivering this event live. But these people, these volunteers that are giving time, are taking on an incredible amount of responsibility. Michelle Frechette is leading the speakers team, for example, and we're dealing with 66 sessions. The organising of that is really quite phenomenal, and the fact that these individuals are taking these on in their spare time is really quite a testament to their dedication to Big Orange Heart.
Yeah, I was chatting with Michelle in Slack the other day because I'm doing a podcast interview with some folks for WordFest, which is really cool. I was chatting with her a little bit hey, I just need some contact information for these people, no rush. I know you're probably busy. And she was like, yeah, I'm really busy, WordFest. Woo, this is crazy. So I think the and everybody, I go on to WordFest Alive and I see the team on the homepage. I'm like some of my favorite people in the WordPress space, so clearly a really good core group of folks. I did want to start wrapping up a little bit by asking you about live events, because as 2021 soldiers on, and obviously you go into 2022, there will probably be a resurgence of live events. There are a lot of people probably who are getting more used to digital events. So I like that we're doing digital events. I think we should make them, continue to make them available for people. A lot of people will like to attend those, but there is definitely going to be a good amount of people who are I want to go fly out to go do this event, or I want to get together, even if it's just 15 people, do a little mastermind weekend or something. I think that will resurge as this year goes on and next year, starts. What do you think WordFest is going to do in terms of IRL events? Do you think you'll do a little bit of both, a little digital and a little bit of in person, or is it going to go more towards in person? Maybe you haven't thought too much about it, but maybe something's boiling up in your brain.
We've actually thought quite a lot about it, and it's actually so. When we built the platform really was, we wanted to focus on the concept of a hybrid event. So we really want to make sure that we have the opportunity with the platform that we've built to enable us to have both that combination of in person and digital. The really special thing about the virtual events is it's opened up the opportunity for, and I know I've mentioned it many times, but this idea of a much more diverse community, because we can, or speaker opportunities and the ability for people to attend events. We run our WordPress London meetup every single month. We were running it twice a month for quite some time through the pandemic, and we were seeing we had members join from 96 different global territories into our WordPress London meetup. Now, our in-person WordPress London meetup, as fantastic as it is, almost all of those individuals that are in the room at our WordPress London meetup are from London. So having this virtual environment has really just opened up so many more interesting conversations and sessions, and we've been able to bring in speakers internationally without having to think about visas, without having to think about travel costs. And so there's a huge benefit to the virtual environment, but equally, there's something really special about the in-person side of things. I think, as I mentioned earlier on, the hallway track for me is incredibly special. That time I run into Nick in the sponsors hall at WordCamp US, there's conversations that just happen spontaneously in person are incredibly special. So with WordFest Live, there's been some thought around the idea of, do we deliver a 24-hour event in multiple locations at the same time? We're not quite sure. There's, again, these sorts of things take huge amounts of organization. We think it's challenging doing it in a virtual environment. When we get to the in-person, it just just dials up.
Doesn't get any easier.
Not at all. So we will see on that one. There is a desire for us to have a combination of both in-person and digital as we move forward. But the exact delivery of that is obviously is still very much open.
Yeah, very interesting. I know that I'm a big member of the Indie Hackers community. It's like an online community for mostly people who have like bootstrap businesses, people who have revenue funded businesses, some funded stuff, but it's more like, how do I take $1,000 and start a business that can be successful? So, and they do meetups. They have like Indie Hackers meetups that are like volunteer run by people in different cities. So they've got like, if you go on their website, you can go onto their meetups and it's like, not now, obviously, but later this year they'll probably start back up where they have these just like in-person meetups, and it's not like 100 people at each, maybe, but it's there are like 5 people from one city or maybe like 25 from another, and the people get together. And I know that the founder, like, he went around, like traveled around the US going to like all these different cities meetups, which I thought was so cool. So I think there's definitely a model for that. I also I'm thinking more about your loving spaces. I think that's what you're calling them. The in your community, I've been to events that are just like 15 people for the weekend, and it's kind of like mastermindy, but sometimes it's more informal than that. It's just like these great conversations happen about business when you have people who are like really obsessed with like wanting to make their businesses better. A lot of times you don't need the formal like mastermind. You just need to get people in the same room and they just like, woo, let's talk about this stuff. So those weekends have been very interesting to me. So I've thought a little bit about like, WPMRR Live, like is there like maybe early 2022, like would it be cool to do like even just a small thing? I want to help as many people as possible, but I also want to have the biggest impact possible. So if I can have a big impact on 15 people as opposed to not very much of an impact on 100 people, I may go in the fewer people direction. But anyway, lots of stuff to think about, but it's very interesting.
There is. I think one of the things that we have to be really, really careful of this concept of hybrid is making sure that we don't deliver the worst of both worlds.
Yeah,
because I think there's that issue of
easy to do that.
It is absolutely. You deteriorate the experience for the in-person by having to think about the virtual, and vice versa. So it's definitely there's another set of learning experiences to go through here.
I like your idea of like every 6 months. Like I could see a world in which like, hey, you do a few months to prep for the in-person, you do the in-person, and then a few months to prep for the virtual. You never overlap them, and that sounds like it would work. But I totally agree with you. In essence, if you do an in-person event and a virtual event, you are dividing your attention into two, although similar, maybe around content, like very different to actually like pull those both off successfully. So it's really splitting your attention into two different things. So I agree. You got to be careful around that. You got to make sure that you do it in a way that's not leading you to burnout city, That's right. I mean, our in-person events, going way back, we have live streamed the content of our in-person events for many years. And the requirement to do that is, we have to bring in a lot of equipment, cameras, microphones, lighting, all the equipment to go with it. And that, on a monthly basis, trying to deliver those events is quite a big ask, particularly of volunteers. But it meant that we were already delivering an element of this kind of hybrid style event. But I think there's definitely things we can do to make a better experience across the board. Very cool, Dan. Dude, this has been an awesome conversation. I really appreciate you coming on the podcast. I've been wanting to have you on for a little while, and I'm super glad we finally got the chance to talk. I got to pick your brain a little bit. So let's start wrapping up. I have 2 final things to go through, though. One is I just want folks to know where they can find You Online, Big Orange Heart Online, WordFest Online, social media, any of that stuff?
Sure. Thank you. Well, if you want to connect with myself, I'm Dan Maby, Maby, pretty much everywhere. DMs are open across the board, so do connect. If you're looking to connect with Big Orange Heart, bigorangeheart.org. If you are looking for support, hit our support page, hit our contact page if you want to chat with any of us, any of the team live. If you are interested in WordFest Live, a 24-hour festival of WordPress taking place on the 23rd of July, that can be found at wordfest.live/register. And of course, just be aware, time zones are always challenging. So we are starting the event at midnight UTC, which we know can be a challenge in terms of calculating those time zones. Hit the website, wordfest.live. You will find that the times on the homepage are set in your local time automatically, but you can change them to UTC as well.
Yeah, I love that on the homepage. So WordFest.live, you can go on. It has your local time zone set automatically, and you can change it in a little menu item, or it's a little tab. You click, you change your time zone, and it'll real time change everything to know exactly what time things are happening in your time zone. So a complex 24-hour event, but easy for us, the attendees.
Yes. I've got to just quickly say a big shout out to Brian at WP Sessions. He actually created that plugin that we are using there.
Oh, so, I'm not surprised at all. Brian is if you need Brian to do something technical, I'm literally not surprised. It's if you could ask me to guess, but well, that sounds like something Brian would have done. Nailed it. So shout out to Brian too. Nice job, Brian.
Yeah, absolutely.
Cool. Last but not least, I do like to ask our guests to ask our listeners here for a little Apple podcast review. So if you wouldn't mind asking folks to leave us a review, I'd appreciate it, Dan.
Sure, absolutely. If you've enjoyed this podcast, if you've enjoyed any of these podcasts, please do drop us a review on Apple. We would love to hear from you. We'd love to know what you think. We'd love to hope you've enjoyed this. So please do give it a 5-star if you've enjoyed your time with us. Thank you very much.
There you go, wpmrr.com/review. Redirects you right there if you are on a Mac or an Apple device. If you are a new listener to the show, you can go and binge some old episodes, wpmrr.com/podcast. Got some old episodes, 150 or odd old episodes. So go and use the search bar, search for whatever you're having a challenge with right now, and listen to some older episodes. The WPMRR community.wpmrr.com. If you want to take the podcast experience and you actually want to get involved, you want to not just listen, but you want to talk with other people in this community of folks who we are all trying to grow our subscription businesses together, feel free to join in. And the WPMRR Virtual Summit is coming up in September later this year. If you sign up for the community, you are automatically registered for it. So more details again about that summit at WPMRR.com. That is all for this week on the podcast. We will be in your earbuds again next Tuesday. Dan, thanks again for being on, man. It's been real.
Joe, really appreciate it. Thank you so much for your time.
See you, everyone.